Welcome to Kingdom Mothers Rise Up, where I encourage and equip you to heal your heart and renew your mind so you can live the fully abundant life Jesus promised you. Let's go. It's time to move.
I just had this feeling again of like, I don't have anything to say, or I know there's stuff you want me to say, but I don't feel adequate to say. I don't feel like it's going to come out good. I don't feel like it matches up with where I'm at, which as I sat with it, I'm like, it's all ridiculous. So I was like, okay, do it. Cause I thought, well, maybe like it's another week where I need to just like show my process. And then I recognized this voice of accusation and discouragement coming back of, well, you can't, you can't do that. You need to show up from a healed place and from a like have it all figured out place. Like you can talk about the journey and the struggle after you've gotten to this certain place of, I don't know, maturity or being healed or whatever. Why am I listening to that? Because I don't believe that. Like that's not how I led before. And that's part of what kept me stuck for so many years was only people sharing from like their healed place or their, sharing from the other side. And like, so then their testimony is, I went to this conference or I read this book or I said this prayer and it changed everything. And now here I am on the other side. And that was so discouraging and so frustrating to me because, like, I've read the books, I've gone to the conferences, I've said the prayers, I've done all this stuff, and I am not on the other side yet. So, like, it must just be me, like, because I'm missing the boat for this magical, like, have this moment and get to the other side. I recognize now that either they're too far removed from their story to share what that process looked like, even from that moment that, like, okay, I can look back and see that from that moment, something significant changed. And then I was able to live differently until now. I feel like I'm on the other side. And there are some stories of God like just miraculously changing, rewiring people's brains, and everything is different from that point. But most of the testimonies that were being shared were not actually that. They just sounded like that. And so I would get so frustrated and probably like really re-injured in a way that I am doing all the things and I'm not on the other side. And why isn't God giving me this moment that just changes everything? Why is it so hard for me? As I was sitting down this morning, like, well, do I share what I prepared yesterday? Or, yeah, like, just like, do I share what I prepared yesterday? And like, I didn't even fully get the question out. And he just, like, I could feel his presence. He's like, share the process. And so I recognize that voice of like, no, you can't share the process. You have to share the process from the other side, not when you're in the middle of the process. And so that just like almost made me weep because I'm like, no, I'm sharing the process in the process because that's what I needed. And do I wish I was still not in the process? Yes. Will I ever not be in the process? No. Because he also reminded me I get to live things and go through things and experience things so that I have a very clear understanding of what it feels like to be there and what help is needed to get out of there. And it's not being told to, do this one thing that changes everything. Yeah, I'm supposed to share the process. And I'm not a bad leader or weak to share that I'm struggling or that I'm still in process because I'm not going to come on and just like vomit my troubles on you and walk away and leave you holding this like, oh, this person I looked up to is such a mess and like there's no hope for me. No, the process is going from here's where I'm struggling and here's how I'm back to focusing on what God says is true and what he's doing and, why things are the way they are. I'm not a leader trying to show up as I have it all together, do what I do. I'm walking this journey ahead of you. And here's the things that the Lord is showing me. Just in the sitting down to write, when I keep it in my head, sometimes I hear him clearly like that and I know what he's saying. But often it takes the putting pen to paper to slow my brain down enough to actually listen instead of just keep rambling and throwing questions at him, because we can't write near as fast as we think. So it just slows the whole process down. So even just that, and maybe that's all I need to share today. Like, is everything fixed? Is everything better? No. But I have his perspective now instead of mine. My perspective this morning was, I'm not really sure what to share. I am struggling with my old programming, the spirit that's against me, whatever it is that is telling me I shouldn't really bother to show up. I sit down and write a few sentences, and it slows me down enough for his voice to come flooding through of like, no, remember, I told you when you started this journey that you get to live through these things so that you can teach them well, so that when you're talking to the women that I bring to you, you're not talking from some theoretical standpoint. You're talking from lived experience of this is what it looks like. And at times I still struggle because I want it to look different. But the reality is it looks like sitting down and writing out what I'm thinking to be able to hear what he's thinking and let him remind me that you do get to live through this. You are going to lead differently because you needed to be led differently. You needed to be taught differently. You needed to see the tiny little steps along the way, because what seemed like normal steps for other people were huge steps for me. The hope and the encouragement and like excitement that brings of like, right, I'm doing exactly what God wants me to be doing. And am I going to need to do it again later today? Maybe, because we're in a super intense season right now. Like, the world is trying to turn itself inside out, and we need to get ourselves solid in who we are and what God is saying to us so that we can step out and turn it for the kingdom and bring hope and healing to all of these hurting people. When I remember that I'm doing this for his purpose and it's going to bring him glory and it's going to serve other people, then I was like, okay, I'm going to learn my lesson. I learned my lesson and I get to move on to a new lesson. And I can look at the lessons and the struggles with joy, truly, when I look at it from his perspective of like, see, this is the blessing that's going to come through this. I also debated on like, okay, so does that mean like I need to get set up so that I can do some doodling on this? And would there be benefit from me doodling through some of this? Yeah, and I'll probably do that. But that felt hard this morning. Was willing to do it anyway, but as I sat and journaled, like I didn't need to. I just needed to write those few sentences to be reminded. I think maybe that's why David wrote so many psalms and songs, because it's like, soul, I need you to remember this. I need you to remember this is who God is, and this is what he's done for us, and this is what his promises are. Slow down enough to hear him. Realizing you're in the storm for a reason is the trick. Yes, I'm in the storm for a reason, and it's a good reason. He's been telling me for a long time, but like since a conference I went to a couple weeks ago, he's been telling me like, get out those words and those pictures and those things I've spoke to you in the past. You need them. Like, I've been looking, not probably quite as much as I could, but I have been looking for them, and he's been bringing them to mind. Like you get to live this first. You don't get to teach anything you haven't lived. The storm, like part of him saying that I'm a lighthouse. Lighthouses are built for storms. They're built for really bad weather. That's what they're for, and that's when they shine the brightest. To keep your eyes above the storm, and words and teachings about how eagles fly into a storm and they use the force of the storm to actually lift them above it. And he's been talking to me a lot about eagles lately too. So just want to slow down to be encouraged. I think that's probably one of the reasons that the enemy likes to keep us so busy, is it's hard to be encouraged when you're busy. Because God's like, no, slow down, be still, remember who I am and what I'm doing. And that changes everything, because like, oh, even if this stuff isn't the way that I want it right now, you're working. And if I slow down to remember you're working, then I'm going to do things differently, and more stuff is going to change and come into alignment with him than when I'm busy and spinning on all the things that I need to do and I feel like I need to make happen. Not sure know how to describe this. That's where I feel like the doodling is so helpful. Like if I were to do a doodle of how I felt waking up this morning, there was like, I don't know, like clouds rushing around in my head, like interfering with my thoughts, and just like my head in a fog too, and just like, what? And then feeling heavy, like the cloud that was keeping me from seeing, but a cloud that was heavy too. And then as I sit and let the Lord encourage me and remind me, I feel like that lighthouse standing, shining bright, being like, whatever you've got, throw it at me. I'm good. I'm on the rock. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm created for his purpose, and he's responsible for the outcome. So let's go. In just a few minutes, like it takes a lot longer to explain than it took to happen. If you have questions about that, of like I sit down and write and that doesn't happen, or anything, just I want it to make sure that I'm being relevant and that I'm not ever getting to that disconnected place of like, I'm on the other side now, and people listening to me feeling like I felt listening to others in the past. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Kingdom Mothers Rise Up podcast. I'm blessed to have you here. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join us in the Kingdom Mothers Rise Up Facebook community. When you're ready for more support, I have the Heart Doodling with Jesus monthly membership, periodic group coaching, and one-on-one personalized coaching as well. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.